So just a quick background on why we exist as a business. Graham's going to jump into everything that's new that's coming up. And then we have a couple things that are just about to come out that we're working on a little bit further away. So we'll show you some of those in screenshots and GIFs and things. All right, we'll jump right into it. Just a little background on why we started the business and some of what we're trying to achieve here in a broader sense. You've probably heard this a lot, that employee engagement is a top priority at many companies around the world. One thing I think it maybe is phrased a little bit differently, but one thing I think people often don't notice is that the percentage of people who are engaged has remained basically flat for the past 30 years. Doesn't really matter when you kind of plot it, you're going to have about 30% of US workers engaged. Even though we've been talking about trying to fix this problem for so long and have been buying software or reading management books or what have you. To me, that makes me think the way that we've been approaching this is wrong. I think often we've been buying survey software or asking people what they want. And the truth is 70% of your scores come down to your manager, right? Like if you have a great manager, if you have a great boss, people tend to like work more than if you have a bad manager. And yet, for the most part, the tools that we're given as managers have been designed by HR for HR. And we have to use them to do managey type things in a way to make a check mark on the compliance register. So we thought, what would it look like if we built this suite, except we rethought about this every feature and piece of functionality as if it was designed for the manager, by the manager, with almost no input from anyone else. And that's really what we're trying to go out here and accomplish, which is what is the first performance and engagement platform built for managers from the first timer all the way up to the CEO. And where we started is by looking at what the manager is already doing. What are they actually doing for their team to make performance better, to make engagement better, to make the team run smoother, to make everything work at work. And we started with the calendar. That was the highest source of truth document that we could find. And it turns out that all of these meetings in here, for the most part, the manager is running for the team, is running for the company. They're not just doing it so that they can feel good. So what we wanted to do was take these meetings that exist. And by the way, these stats are just to show that there are an astronomical amount of them. We do more meetings at work than we do basically anything else. But they're also how we do the management things. They're the moments in which you get to be a manager. So whether you're talking about performance or you're building rapport, or you're talking about motivation, you tend to do those in meetings. So we thought we could build some things to help you do them better. For the most part, and everyone probably agrees with me here, most meetings suck. I'll touch on a few things here, but I won't beat you up with it. You already understand. Well, two things maybe that are surprising to learn. As just human beings as a species, we cannot remember what happens in meetings. We've got about 28% recall of what was said in a meeting after 48 hours. And that drops to 10% recall after 7 days. So if you have a meeting that's really important, you're only going to recall 10% of that. And that's why we start to have things like weekly recurring meetings. Now, because everyone forgets everything in meetings, executives are frustrated and employees are confused. The good thing is apps are really good at remembering things. And so you can start to offload bits and pieces to software. The last thing, I won't bore you with these stats, remote makes things worse. We've all experienced that for the past 2 years for sure. But we're spending more time in meetings, and we have more meetings. So even little things that would be rapport, building rapport with your team or getting to know them or smiling and laughing have become scheduled time in the calendar. And it makes that fatigue grow. And our take on it is the software that exists today helps us meet, right? Zoom helps us show up here today. It doesn't help us manage. You don't have to go too far to see that this poor person in a group team meeting is managing with a piece of paper. effectively, those are the same tools we've been using to manage since like the dawn of modern time. So goes without saying, we think it's time for change. We think it's time that we built that first suite of technology and tools for that group of middle managers, starting with the calendar, but going all the way through. So with that out of the way, I'll pause there. For those that have just joined, you didn't miss anything. The real filling, the Oreo of this webinar is going to be Graham demoing all the new features and taking some feature requests. But I just want to repeat that we're trying to make this interactive and fun, and not just another webinar. So please do go into the chat. Please do fill it up with as much as you want. Graham's going to be driving for most of the demo, but I'll be incorporating as many of your comments and questions and stuff in here. Okay, so with that out of the way, I'll stop sharing my screen. Graham's going to go over a whole slew of things that you may have missed that are out, and some things that are just about to drop coming soon.
Yeah. Keep your screen up. I like it. Oh, that's a good starter. Yeah, I need it for the first section because I don't actually have slides for it.
It's coming back.
Sweet. So Brennan's going to flip back to the last slide, which is basically painting what we're going to talk about today on the demo that you can see there. Demo 1 of 2. There's 2 sections of the demo. For the first section, I'm going to show you stuff that's actually out there in the wild today. I've broken it up into 4 different themes. One is a look behind the scenes at a whole bunch of stuff that we worked on that you might be excited about. And if you're of the engineering mindset, you might be really excited to hear some of the things of how we make things. I'm really bad at analogies, how the cookie gets made. We'll go with that. And then theme 1 is where we start to really get into some of the reason why our app exists, to help managers have high performing teams or build high performing teams. And that's all about the content that you're creating, sharing, and organizing with your teammates. And then we'll talk about the workflow and some improvements we've made across the board there to improve the way that you use the app across all the different tools that you're currently using. And then we'll get into where we're going next with that. And then the guest experience, which is one of the biggest features we've launched. I'm going to talk to you about how that's coming together and some interesting new updates we just launched, actually, I think last week. Cool. So first, I'll talk about behind the scenes. Keep sharing your slides, Brennan, for behind the scenes, because again, nothing for this to show. We've spent, so this is the spring changelog. And so I'm going to focus on what we worked on over the last 4 months, basically since the last time we had this presentation. And I think if you want to see what we worked on before that, you can go to hypercontext.com/changelog and see a list of everything we pushed out in great detail. I'd try my best to give you all the line items of specific fixes, bug fixes we've had, performance updates, any kind of improvement that we made to the platform. And then if you really want, yes, thank you for sharing the link, Nicole. If you really want the up-to-the-minute updates, follow me or Hypercontext on Twitter. Actually, follow Brennan because he'll just reshare everything that I talk about. And you'll get the weekly changelog in a tweet format with animated GIFs just for your enjoyment. It's fun to put that together when I remember to. There's my Twitter. Thank you, Brennan. Cool. So for theme 1, behind the scenes, what we focused on was a lot of platform security and performance updates. We were able to actually test our disaster recovery process, which is really cool to actually do. I know that sounds super lame, but it was a lot of fun to actually destroy, not in production, but like we mirrored production, destroy the entire back end of our system and rebuild it from scratch. And we had it back up and running within a half an hour. So disaster recovery check. And this is part of the process of us becoming SOC 2 certified, which we're going through right now. Me and one of my head of engineering, we're working on it, just going through all the different checks and all the policies we're creating just to make sure we're abiding by the right terms. So that's come together. Hopefully we'll have that in the next, let's say 3 or 4 months, get that certified. And then we did a lot of updates to our backend infrastructure. We made some big database changes just to get us ready for some scalability challenges that we expect to come this year, including support for, it's a character set called UTF-8 MB4. It allows us to support multilingual characters and emojis right in the database. So that should help with interpreting data and translating data right from our system out. So before we were doing some fun stuff with short codes and doing some like on the fly, changing from a short code to a animated GIF or to just a regular GIF. So now we're actually doing it. We're storing the emoji as is in our system. So that's cool. And then we also updated our entire infrastructure. We fully changed all of our app servers, our worker servers. We updated our framework, both our front end and our back end frameworks, to the latest versions. They're both just before the LTS versions. So we're on track to get to our LTS platform by the end of this year. And across the board, we saw about 25 to 30% performance improvements just by updating the frame of our product. So that was cool to see. And we made a whole bunch of other improvements across the board, and we still do every quarter. We have our own engineering roadmap just to tackle some of our technical debt, just to make sure we're pounding through all of that stuff to keep the apps secure and performance. That is it. I whipped through that really quick because that's the like boring stuff.
I figure people wouldn't have. I figure they wouldn't have a ton of questions about that part, but you never know.
We're doing our due diligence. We're being good stewards of the platform.
Yeah.
Keeping it up to date, and it's cool. It's cool to work on an app that actually is constantly updated to the latest and greatest versions of different platforms and tools. So if you have questions about the tech stack, feel free to pop it in. I love talking tech, and I rarely get to. Let's be honest. Brennan, you can stop sharing your screen, and I will take over and talk about the first theme. That was theme 0. So it's kind of like a pre-theme for my engineering nerds out there. So the first thing, thank you. Share my screen. I'm going to share part of it, and I really hope this goes off easily. Share. Let's see where it ends up. There it is. Cool. Okay. So hopefully you see a frame. Ooh, I lost the chat. Oh no, here it is. I got the chat back.
I got you. I'll watch chat.
Yeah, thank you. You watch chat, and you just you just let me know what's happening. That's probably easier. Then I can focus on the presentation part. Okay, so you should see Hypercontext, our website, in frame with a bunch of different tabs open. That's just so I can make sure the demo goes by a little smoother.
Yeah, we got it.
Great. Okay, so the first major theme of stuff we worked on over the last 4 months is content. And really, content is king. It's why I use our app. We are a note-taking app. We're a meeting agenda software. We're the place your team gathers online to share content and get stuff done for your teams. So we have to have a really good experience. One thing we focused on was the template side of the business. So as a new manager, or even a really experienced manager, knowing what to talk about can be tough, especially if you want to have these hard conversations, you're not sure how to do it. So we've created this list of a ton of templates. How many are now? I think there's like over 70 different agenda templates. Oh, this is the main website. Here we go. 76 free agenda templates online, ready for you to dive in and use in your next meetings. So there's one specific for one-on-ones, performance updates, how to have really good interviews, how to have good planning for your teams at different stages of your team. If you want OKR planning, sprint planning, so whatever level you need, as well as specific ones for engineering or leadership meetings, HR meetings, tons. There's so many different ways you can meet around our app. One thing we worked on, and actually this is something that's really cool, is that Brennan, our CEO, is also a really talented developer, and he made this entire website. So that's one of the changes we made, was to revamp this website completely. And we added in the ability to see who's viewing these templates, as well as who has downloaded them. So if you click on one of them, and I will click on one that's fun. Let's find one for Brennan. I had this written down. Where is it? Where'd it go? Yeah, here's one that I think is pretty fun. At Hypercontext, on the engineering side, we do a thing called the sailboat retrospective every 2 weeks. And then Brennan went in and made a template just for that. And so part of the changes is you can see that Brennan here has created the template. And if I scroll down, you have a nice little view of what that template looks like. And you can download it as a Word document, an Excel, or a PDF. I think I'm going to show you the PDF because it's very interesting to see it. What I like about the PDF is that it also has this little section here. So if you print this out, you can just take this to a meeting and then add what the next steps are, summarize what the conversation topics were, or what you're agreeing to do for the next meeting, and quickly check off all the items on the list. So it's a really nice way just to quickly use our tool without actually using it. So that's fun. If I go back to here, and if I scroll down even further, it gives you all the ways to use it, why you would use it, how to share it. And then a nice little, I'm going to scroll way back down. There's tons of information here that Brennan and the team put together. A nice little picture of Brennan here. There he is there. A little bit about the author. So we really amped up this public repository of agenda templates. just to create a more engaging platform, a more personalized experience, so you get to know who the author is. So anytime a person shares a template, they'll now appear here if they want to give us their image and their name, and we can create a little blurb for them to really show off their work, and then let other people use their work for them. Cool. And why I'm focusing on this is because we also brought this into the product. So if I go into the actual application here, this is Hypercontext. I'm assuming you've seen it and used it. So this isn't really an orientation. Is this your first time seeing Hypercontext, please book a meeting with Brennan or Jocelyn and just learn more about the app itself, or check out some of the videos online. There's lots online. But if you want to use templates inside of your meetings, you go to new workspace, my templates. Here's the ones I've created, and I'll talk about that in a second. But if you click on one-on-ones or teams, here's all that same list of templates that you can use inside your meeting. So if I go to team meetings and I want that sailboat one, I'll scroll down, and there's so many now, it's hard to actually find the one. There it is here. I can preview that template and then use it right inside of Hypercontext. So that's functionality that's already kind of existed, but we just like fixed up some of the problems inside of it and just made it a better experience. But what we did add was the ability to take one of your templates. So I'll preview this one here and then share them publicly across the entire Hypercontext ecosystem. So in the past, you were able to share one of these templates to your organization or just keep it personal to you, and then your entire team can use it. And that's depending on what plan you're subscribed to. But now you're able to share it publicly and have it go onto that public repository of agenda templates. So this is the Hypercontext employee onboarding. It's the one that I've created. And then I've already shared it publicly, but because I've done that, it then appears on our public template repository here. So if I was to go to all meetings and templates, and if I search for employee onboarding, here it is here. So if I click on that, it's created by me. Here's all that same information I talked about before, ways to download it and share it with peers. And then this is obviously super SEO'd up. So people will find this if they search online for it. Brennan and the team have done a really good job to get this out there. And then there's a picture of me with a little blurb for my Twitter. So
yeah, so I think that like Graham kind of exposed a little bit of like a hack, right? Like if you're on our business tier, you can make templates, standardized processes, and share them just within your organization. But if you're on our pro plan or our free plan, historically, you've only been able to use templates for your own use. And so there's a little bit of a hack here where hopefully it's win-win. If you're on free or pro and you have a template that you think someone else at your organization or at a different organization could be valuable, you can share that publicly and get the link, share it to them, let them kind of borrow and steal some of your best practices. And that will land on our website. Other people can kind of also find it that way. So get around some of the upgrades by posting that. But you also, on top of that, get some really cool branding opportunities, like Graham said. You get those PDFs, Word docs, Excels that are all automatically generated for you. So really fun way to, not only standardize at your company, but also just get the word out there with some of the other stuff that you're doing maybe on a personal level.
Totally. Yeah. I was going to say that. Glad you did. Thank you, Brennan. And then, yeah, any hack you want to know of how to use Hypercontext for free, we know all the hacks. So we can get you around all those paid plans. But this is it's a great way to share your voice in the world. And then as a added benefit, then we get to add it to our platform, and then more people get to experience it. And ideally, you then inspire someone else to write a really good template. They then share it, which inspires someone else. So it creates this whole like ongoing effect, this flywheel effect to just keep people going and hopefully share the knowledge and also make a name for yourself if you're looking to become a thought leader in the space. Cool. So that's that feature set. Staying on the agenda templates, we also added the ability to take an existing template or existing meeting that you're in. So this is probably, I'm going to just minimize the sidebar just for now, just so we can focus here. And I'm going to change the view from standard to compact, just to shrink it down a little bit so you can see the agenda within the whole screen. It's a very small screen that I'm sharing. So we've added the ability to take in a meeting agenda that you already have And let's say you have 5 or 6 direct reports, and you have a standing agenda of the same 3 or 4 things you share, and then maybe there's a couple of custom elements you want to add. You can take a meeting from that workspace that you already created, so like this one here, and then with the ellipses here, you can click that and then use it as a template. And it's going to take all the items from that page, so the description, all the items, and then create a template for you out of that. So the power there is, if you have, let's say you have 6, like I said, if you have 5 or 6 direct reports, you can create that template of starting up. Here's the main things I talk about with all my employees. And then of course, once it's created, you can then go off and start to add specific personalized items to discuss between each person. This is just a good way to get you set up and started. Especially if you put a lot of time into that first employees one-on-one, or that first team meeting that you want to use Hypercontext for, and you don't want to replicate all that information twice. This is a good little feature set for that. And so you can publish it to yourself. So then you use it. And I recommend doing that first, just to make sure you're happy with it. There's no spelling mistakes or anything. So you can put your seal of approval on it, and then you can share it with your organization if you're on a business plan, or share it publicly for free and then share it with everyone else. And so let's say you have a team of 5 or 6 managers who are also using Hypercontext, and you like the format you've created for your one-on-ones. You can then quickly take the link that you got from the public marketing site and then share that with your peer and say, hey, I created this template. It's helped me have way better conversations with my direct reports. Please use it. And they can go do that.
You can also, you probably can already guess, but you can also change that setting at any time. So if you post it live and then regret that, you can take it off and put it back to private. So there's a little bit of like, if you wanted to share, if you really want to work around some of our paywalls, you can share it publicly, let your peers use it immediately, and then take it back to private. And that will allow you to kind of transfer things on pro plans a little bit easier without having to upgrade. But I don't know if Jocelyn's writing me in Slack saying, don't say that. But anyways, that's how you could do it if you want to get around it.
There you go. Yeah. And this is the edit mode. So once you post it live, here's the edit place where you can actually change the order of the items, add, update sections, or whatever you want to do here, as well as switch it from public back to private.
Graham, I'm getting in trouble.
You're getting in trouble already?
Yeah, I'm getting in trouble. Yeah, she's messaging me.
Okay.
So
pay for Hypercontext. Pay fully for it. There you go. I tried.
We're going to be making, I think, more and more updates to templates as you go. So if you have, as you use them, if you have ideas, if you have thoughts, if you have wants or needs, like obviously with everything else, let us know. When the time comes, we'll incorporate all that feedback into what we're building.
Cool. And then the last part of the content theme that I want to talk about is probably the one feature that's been requested more than any other feature, I think, ever in our entire existence. It's something we've always wanted to do. We just had other things that are a little more important, but we finally have done it. And a shout out to Chris on the engineering team who actually built this feature for us. So if you were to, let's say you have an item and it's perfect. It's got everything you want in it, and you really want to share this with someone else on your team. If you look at the item here, and let's say you click the ellipses, you can now copy this to another workspace. And not just a workspace, but actually to entire sections of workspaces if you wanted to. So if I pop open the sidebar real quick, and I click on workspaces. So if you're using Hypercontext, you've connected your calendar, you're probably on this view, which is the calendar sync view. And I talked about that in the last changelog. But if you're on the workspaces view, here's a place where you can create these little folders and then bucket your workspaces underneath them. So I have them functionally. So I have basically my conversations with Brennan. I have my conversations with product as well as my team meetings. So I have my one-on-ones and team meetings for product. And then I have the same thing for engineering. So if I want to take an item here and let's say share it across all of my product team members, I can click copy to, and then I can click the individual one-on-one to share with, or maybe I want 3 meetings, or I can click the entire bucket and it's going to share with everyone in that list. Copy the items. I'm not going to do that there. I'll do it to like.
You can do it to me.
To Brennan.
Go for
it.
I'll
do it to Brennan. Yeah. These are real meetings. I don't mess with them. So I'll copy to that. And then if I click on my one-on-one with Brennan, and if you remember from the last video, if you were here for it, I don't actually use any of these sidebars. I use keyboard shortcuts. So Command K, one-on-one with Brennan. And this is the item here, I believe. Yeah.
So Graham's shown you there, but something people have often asked is, does that copy the description? Does that copy the next steps? He showed you there a little bit, but yeah, it'll copy the full state minus the summary.
Yes. It'll copy. Yes, it will take the description. There's none of this one. It will take the next steps, and I believe the links and the attachments as is the starting point. And then you go from there. So the comments aren't there and the summary isn't there, which makes sense because you summarize the conversation you've had and you would add comments about what you're talking about.
Yeah. We have a question that just popped in, Graham, about this, which is this like a one-time sync, or do they stay in sync if you check something off in one meeting, does it check off in the other? How does this work?
Yeah. So at this stage right now, they're not synced. The reason for that is because the conversations you're going to have will be different. We have thought about really cool ways to use the app where you can share the same item across them all and get an aggregate response. That's not there yet. So that's something we're thinking about and lightly crafting up some designs for. So when you do the copy to, you're making a duplicate of that item and all of its corresponding elements that come with it. So there's no sync.
Benefit of that is you don't accidentally share things with different team members you shouldn't, right? And it's a little bit more intentional. So we've had things even internally that have bumped from one meeting to the next meeting, and then it's ended up in a meeting with me, and I've bumped it from my meeting to a third meeting to a fourth meeting. And there's a little bit of like a chain reaction that once you get the answer, you can kind of chain reaction all the way back. But the benefit is the person who's like the fourth link in the chain, they'll have no idea that they're necessarily updating something 4 or 5 links later. So we just wanted to keep that a little bit more intentional than automatic.
Yep, 100%. And we are working on something that's real cool, where you would get the aggregated response of an item. It's just not ready for prime time. There's just some nuances to make it work, but it's something that I'm definitely thinking about. So if you have, I guess, use cases of how you want these shared links, these shared items to work, please put them in the chat and actually send it to us afterwards. Maybe tweet me, and then we'll help craft how we actually build it. Cool.
Yeah. Summaries don't copy over. I saw that in chat. Summaries don't. Descriptions do. Summaries don't. Next steps do. And
comments don't.
Yeah, comments don't. Links don't.
Yeah.
So you'll get the framework for it, but the default, at least on version 1 of this, is we didn't want to mess with potentially sharing things that shouldn't be shared. If you disagree with those decisions, we have no ego around them, so let us know, and we'll look more into it.
Cool. So that's the first section. That's the content elements we've added. There's something really cool we're working on, which we'll talk about a little later on in the presentation. It is next level, but that's not out live in the world yet, so we'll talk about it shortly. The next theme I want to talk about is the workflow. This is how you use the product. So going from, it's not just what you're talking about, but like the way you do it. So how you open up the calendar, click on the person, have the video pop in, have Hypercontext pop in, have the meeting, finish the meeting, get the meeting minutes, and any notifications involved around that. So we've done a lot of work to improve that entire chain, because when you use our app, it's not about just having the workspace, it's about the meeting hygiene around it. So there's a lot of things that go into prepare for that meeting, have it, and then follow up and make sure you're staying on top of things. This is kind of how you craft a good experience for the employee and the manager. It's that relationship to make sure you're talking about the right things, but then that manager's following up to get things actually completed. So we've put a lot of effort and thought into how we can actually craft this chain and put it into the way you work. We really don't want Hypercontext to become a space where you go and have to enter like data entry and it sits separate from everything else. We want to embed it across all of the tools that you're using. So one of the things we started was we added the Mac app. This is one of the limitations of Zoom. I'm not able to show you the feature we've added, but I will shrink my screen real quick just to show you what we've done with the Mac app. So you can download this today, and I'll just close some things so you don't see all my notes in my Slack. Close that down. Hopefully this is working. If it's not, I apologize.
It's working. We're following.
Okay, you're following. Good. So I've moved the screen over to my top bar so you can see all the different apps that I have in the top. And unfortunately, when Zoom is on, I'm not able to allow notifications to pop in. This is just one of the things I found out this morning. So if you up here, you can see this is Hypercontext. And because it's synced to my calendar, you can see the next meeting that's happening or anyone that's in progress. So right now we're having this webinar. And if I click on this, you can see this is happening now. We have this quick join button. If I click that, it opens up the meeting and then I can jump right into it. So I use this, I would say religiously. This is how I get to all of my meetings and how I'm not, well, sometimes I'm late, but how I'm not typically late to meetings because it tells me you have a meeting in 5 minutes. Now it's 3 minutes, 2 minutes. The meeting is starting now. So it's super, super helpful. And then it shows you your day. So you have what's happening now or what's happening soon. And then you have your day of meetings and where you are in that journey. Super helpful. What we added was push notifications to this. So again, I apologize, I can't demo this for you, but if you have the sidebar closed like this, you're just working away. And then if someone adds an item to a meeting or summarizes something or adds a comment, it'll pop in as a notification. You can click that and it's going to open up Hypercontext to exactly that piece of element that was added to the meeting. Very, very helpful. I use it all of the time. And anything you want to add, Brennan?
I was just going to say it's the Mac app itself. I mean, works that those join links and that the today's calendar works for meetings that aren't necessarily being run on Hypercontext. So if you're just jumping back and forth between a Google Meet here and a Zoom there and a Microsoft Teams meeting here and something else for a different person, opening up that app, clicking join will take you to the right link every single time, and will inform you of one that's coming up. So just a really helpful, almost like micro app in and of itself. And the bonus is if you're a Hypercontext user, you're going to get those push notifications and quick links back to our app. So yeah, I agree with Graham. It's one of those things that like an incredible amount of value, really hard to describe. You have to kind of experience a little bit to feel it. We use it a lot.
Nice. I'm going to pull you over here, back to the app. So that's the Mac app, and we're making small improvements to that app, but it's basically in a really good state. So I recommend using it, even if you're not using Hypercontext, like Brennan said. It's really helpful just to get to your next meeting if you have a lot of remote meetings with like Google Hangout links or Zoom links. So that's the Mac app. We've also added full functionality to the Google Chrome extensions. This was a request from the community. So if I go to my calendar here, previously, if you have, yeah, this is enough for you for it. Yeah. So typically when you open up a meeting that's connected to Hypercontext, it would look like, well, that's the meeting. I'll open up the actual Hypercontext link. You can do that by clicking on the little astronaut. It would show you just the agenda view. And so what we've added is the team spent, I would say, about probably 6 months just modifying all the views across the whole platform to work in more of this mobile context where it's kind of smushed screen size. And so now you're able to go to everything. So you can go check out what the goals are, the Insights tab, the past meetings, and also the Next Steps tab. So the entire app's functionality all works from within this space. This is our real one-on-one, so I wasn't sure what was actually going to pop up. Luckily,
we did good.
We did good. It's clean. And so because this meeting is hooked up to a calendar, I can join the meeting here as well. This will open up a new tab with the Google Hangout chat, as well as open up the Scratchpad to take quick notes if I need to do that as well. So that's the little big thing that we added this quarter. The next thing I want to talk about is single sign-on. So last time, copy the link. I'm prepared for this one. Last time, we added the ability to integrate to your single sign-on system. And so if you click this button, it's going to connect to whatever single sign-on system you've configured with our product. This worked, but it had a whole bunch of stuff behind the scenes that we had to do manually and a lot of command line updates that were super terrifying to make. So what we added, if I go back to Hypercontext, if I'm the owner or one of the administrators of the space and I've enabled the business plan, I can click on organizational settings. And if you scroll down here, you now have this ability to configure your SSO. So if I click on that, it's going to error out for me. Exciting. This might happen because we already probably have something set up.
I think ours is set up.
Ours is set up. Well, I would click that and then I would go through an entire flow to configure a single sign-on experience. I'm gonna try it one more time. We'll see. Yeah, okay. Our app is fun.
The downside of using, like, we're actually using our real meetings, because we actually use
And
that. So, but if SSO is something you want, like Graham was mentioning, this is on our business plan. So beyond just, you'll probably have to talk to us to get on the business plan. We're happy to help you, walk you through and set up SSO. We've done it a bunch of times, gotten great reviews from the various IT teams who are astonished that they're able to set up SSO themselves. So pretty seamless experience for sure.
It would be. So what's cool about it is, like Brennan just mentioned, and I have to reiterate because it's just so exciting. We've been in the space building apps for companies, a lot for enterprise over the last 11 years. And for every SSO integration I had to do, it was hours of conversation on the phone to get the claims set up properly, to make sure that everything works. And then every year, updating the security certificate over and over and over again. And it required a lot of collaboration between both parties. Now it's all on the customer side. So you just click a few buttons, configure it to whatever platform you're using, and then upload your own certs, and you're off to the races. So it's a great experience. You have to try it to see it. We'll leave it at that. Cool.
Graham's pretty excited about that one. We have like way more exciting things to talk about other than SSO, but that is an exciting one on our end. It is an exciting one on our end, but I feel like
that's fair. That's fair. Okay, I'll now whip through a couple things and get to more exciting things. Cool. So the other thing I want to talk about is multi-calendar sidebar. This is another feature that's come up a lot with customers. I just clicked on some things, loading a calendar. Here we go. Back to the changelog demo. So we now have the ability by clicking this gear. So if you're in the sidebar is open and you're on the calendar side, click on the gear if you've already configured your calendar, and you can now connect to other calendars. So I have it right now to my own, but I can connect if Brennan has shared his calendar with me, I can click on his and see his events and then create workspaces off of them. I won't actually do that. Or I'm able to change the provider. So now you can in-app switch it between Google or Outlook if you're using that. So you configure one by mistake, you can then quickly change it, or you can disconnect it altogether. So it's now you can play with your calendar, and if you don't like the setup, you can disconnect it, which is something that customers really wanted.
Yeah, especially those of you using Outlook. Outlook in the usually the managed setting, sometimes the default calendar that Outlook tells us is your default one is actually not the one that is typically used by the work environment. So sometimes that can be frustrating, but click those gears and you'll be able to turn on and off the right ones for you. So big customer request lets our app work the way it should work for a lot more people.
Okay. And then the last thing for the workflow section I want to showcase is inside of Slack. So let me just make this nice for you.
Does anyone use Slack? Well, the chat's kind of like died down a little bit. Anyone in here, Slack users at all at work? Never heard of Slack, heard of Slack. Don't care about Slack.
For those who have used Slack, we've now had the ability. So if you're having a conversation in Slack and let's say it becomes a little meaty and too much for that one thread, you then want to take it somewhere else. You now have the ability to, this is a great message I want to bring into. You now have the ability to click on the triple dots and then add it into Hypercontext.
We're under more. Did I get and go more shortcuts?
Yeah, my apologies. More shortcuts.
Yeah, there you go.
There it is. Add to a workspace.
That was Dev. No, not that one.
Oh, that was Dev? Oh.
Yeah, that's okay. Teams user. Okay.
Oh, there you go. My bad.
Yeah.
We use the real thing. And Chris, he's on the call, and I know he's like so mad at me for doing that. He's like, use the right one. Come on, man. I apologize, Chris. So you have the ability now to take that item. So it takes the title and the description, and you can put it into a specific workspace. So you can search for the workspaces here. And these are the ones that they're on Hypercontext. So I can also click on multiple. So if I click on co-founder meeting, Chris's one-on-one, Adam's one-on-one workspace. So this is another way to add items to multiple workspaces from where you're working. So if I do that, it's going to add that item to all those spaces. Hopefully I didn't just spam a bunch of people. I probably did.
I got the notification.
That's right. And then if you're inside of Hypercontext and you have hooked it up to the Slack app, when you finish a meeting, you are able to also put it into a workspace. Put it into a Slack workspace. So if I go to open door meetings, so while I'm here, what's really interesting about this space here, this is a public place for our entire company to share all the meetings that they're having. So let's say Brennan and his sales team are having meetings, or the marketing team are having conversations. With the open door meetings channel that we set up, they can dump all their meeting minutes here to this one location, which is pretty cool. To do that, you type in Hypercontext, the real app, and then you're able to connect to Workspace. And then from that, I can connect on the one I want. So I want to Hypercontext Changelog. And now that's all hooked up. So if I go back to Hypercontext and I finish this meeting, so I finished it and it wrapped all those items into a meeting called April 27th, 2022. If I go back to Slack through the magic of technology, it should pop in shortly if I've done it properly. Changelog demo. For those keen eyes, I connected Hypercontext Changelog, not Changelog demo.
Oh, wrong one. All right, here we go again.
I'll do it again.
We're kind of oscillating back and forth between Teams and Slack. So this is our updated Slack experience. A lot of it, I think, takes the learnings from Slack, our first iteration, and Teams, which was like the second one, taking all those learnings back into this version of the Slack app. And then once we get some of these up and done and out, we'll go back to the Teams experience and bring some of these things over. So if you like these things and want them in the Teams app, obviously let us know.
Yeah. So I connected the right space, my bad. And then there it is there. So changelog demo, April 27th. And then all the items live under here. So you click on that and you can see all the specific items, the next steps, any other business. So it's a great way to output the results of your meeting for your team to see. Cool. That's the Slack updates we made. And then the last theme, I guess, will be talking about the guest experience. So if you have your Hypercontext, I'll go here. And if you add someone to Hypercontext, and let's say you want to add external third-party person coming in, maybe, I don't know, you have like a external vendor that you're bringing to a meeting. So external vendor at email.awesome or something. So if you do that, I'm not going to add that, it's not real address. Add that person to the meeting. As long as the email domain is different than your actual, like your main domain for your company, they will be added as a guest user. And so what they will see, they'll get an email like this. It's going to have kind of an invitation to the meeting and an ability to click this link and join that guest experience. And when they click on that link, what they'll see is this experience here. So they'll be brought right into the actual meeting. It will say viewing as a guest, and it'll have a little beta tag beside it. That's just because we want to let you know we're making updates to it. We're changing what the guests have access to. And then if I click open the sidebar, the only meeting they have access to is that one. So they only have access to the changelog demo. So nothing else in your community is shared, only what they've been invited to specifically. So that's good. And then they're able to add content. So I can add my own item. This is a guest adding an item. And they can check off their own item, or they can delete their own item. But they're not able to interact with other people's items directly. So they can be a guest in the meeting and be there for the conversation, hear what's going on, but they won't have the same level of functionality that other members would have. And so this is great. And what's great is that these members are free. Completely so free. You can pay for actual members who can interact with the agenda, and you can invite people who you don't want to pay for, and they can use the agenda, and then they can at least add their own content. So they're still part of the conversation, but they're just not integral, I guess, to the agenda's completion.
Yeah, they're completely free users. Invite as many of them as you want. We kind of are anticipating that most of them are going to be fairly new to the software. So a lot of it, like, as Graham showed, is just locked down, right? They can create their own stuff. They can edit their own stuff. They can complete their own stuff, delete their own stuff. But when it comes to deleting your notes, they can't do that. So lockdown experience and completely free. We're assuming, and in fact, we saw this was a highly requested feature. We saw a lot of people doing this, and they ended a lot of these users end up being billed for. So roll out a slew of changes, launching it for free, and it's basically, I think, free by default. So you might even be in the situation right now where you have a couple guests if you found yourself accidentally inviting people. The default way it works, as Graham mentioned, is if they have a different email address, like domain on the email address than you, they're going to default to a guest. So you really shouldn't even have to think about it too much. And if you want them to be a member, that's a slightly different process, but you can write in and let us know.
So you'll know if they're a guest because they'll have this little hotel on their account beside them. And then we will have the ability in-app soon to be able to switch that from a guest to a member. That's currently in development. But for now, just write into us and we can switch those people over either from a guest to a user or from a member to a guest. So that's the guest experience. And that's all stuff that's available to you today. So you can use Hypercontext and that's all there, live and ready to go, which is very, very exciting.
We have a question about inviting guests within the same domain or within the same company.
Yeah. So right now, if you invite guests in the same domain, they're going to be added as a member. So if there is a person you want to switch from member to a guest, write into our support and we'll make that change. And then I don't want to promise a timeline, but in a couple of weeks, hopefully, if things go well and there's no issues with the app and the feature, you'll be able to do it from within inside the members section. So if I click on here, I go to members or settings, sorry, agenda settings, members, you'll be able to modify it here. So I see where it says make a manager, you'll be able to promote to a member. And the same thing here, I could take Brennan and then promote him down to a guest. So you'll be able to have more granular control over your users. Cool. All right. So like I said, that's all features available today. Stuff that's upcoming, and I know we're approaching 10, so I want to be incredibly conscious of time for everyone. I'm going to jump into it, right, Brennan? Is that good?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Cool.
I didn't even see the time.
I know. We get talking, we get excited. It's just how it goes. So there's a couple things that our workspaces have access to that yours won't if you're using the app today. And so I'll show you what they are. So the first thing is we've made some amazing changes. Let me go to an item that's more fun here. Let's have a conversation. This is perfect. So we've made some changes here to really improve the note-taking experience. So if I click on to have a description, and let's say I want to really make this description pop. So you can do that. And right now you can add little bullet points and say, it doesn't really pop, but this is currently available to you right now. You can add, we have support Markdown, so you're able to do this, no problem. But now you can highlight pieces of that text like this. And when you do that, a little editor comes up for you to change the text completely. So you're able to change the paragraph to be a heading, bulleted list, numbered list, quotes and codes, or you can start in line here to make changes to it. So you make it bold, make it italic, add underlines, add strike throughs, change the color if you want it to be red and pop. And let's say you want this to have a link, so you can link out to something else. Text.com. So you can do all that now with inside of the app, which is very exciting. If I grab the whole text, actually, I don't even need to grab the whole text. I'll just go here and go quote. Boom. So you have more functional controls to editing your agenda. And this works inside of the description, the summary, and the next steps right now. And we're adding it to other spaces throughout the whole app. So it'll work the same on goals, on discussions, and soon will be added to the Scratchpad as well. So inside the Scratchpad, you can do it here too, to both the private tabs and the share tabs. So
you also have an emoji picker if you wanted to use some emojis. And Sarah asked in the QA, can you put images in there? Can you copy paste images into descriptions?
That's a great question. Can you? I don't know.
I think the answer is right now. This isn't out to anyone. Right now, I don't think you can. But the way we built it, I don't think there's anything stopping us from doing that. So yeah. So now that you've asked the question, we'll probably twist some arms and
I don't think it'll work. Oh, that did work. Will that save though? I don't know if that'll save. I can't help but actually try it. I have to. It was asked. I got to try it.
I feel like
really
that won't
tiny
work,
image.
but
That shouldn't work.
but that it worked.
What?
So we'll make that look nicer because that probably doesn't look the greatest. But like we said, this is been out for us for a little bit. We're kind of working our way through a lot of the little things, like as a note-taking app in a way. Like this is really important to us. So we want to make sure that the short codes work, that if you copy it from Microsoft Word and paste it, it works normally, that if you hit tab, it's doing the right thing within the app, and just being really conscious of that. So because of that, we're really putting it through the tests and the ringer on all the different devices. But I feel like we're super close.
Yep, totally. So that's the.
If I
editor.
screenshot something, I'm not currently able to paste, but thanks for answering. Yeah, currently you don't have this, but I think Graham can probably do that. How many days or weeks, Graham, for something like that?
For that extra feature
WYSIWYG?
or just this?
No,
WYSIWYG. Yeah, so WYSIWYG's been worked on for a while. It's nearing its end. There's just a couple small things we're doing on the back end just to make sure that it saves properly and it looks good in emails and your push notifications, and inside of the comments thread. So once that's resolved, it will go live. So it's soon, very soon.
Soon.
Yeah. Soon.
Very soon. Very soon.
Very soon. Cool. Conscious of very time, I think we should probably switch over to questions if there are questions.
I will also, Graham, I can take over and share. There's like some other things we want to share upcoming, or is there more that you want to get to?
There's only two more things I would talk about if I had any minutes. I'll do it real rapid fire.
Okay, go real quick.
So right now, to finish the meeting, you click this button, it finishes it. Great. I want to get rid of this button, as does the entire team. And so we're playing with the ability to enable this thing called autopilot. It's grayed out for this specific meeting because it doesn't meet the criteria of being a recurring meeting that happens with connected people connected to your calendar. If it was, though, you can click on that box and then it will automatically finish when your meeting finishes in your calendar. Right? It actually gives you some time to not finish right away, so you can have time to update the notes afterwards. That's one thing we're adding. The other thing that we're playing with, which is incredibly cool, and again, shout out to Chris for being so awesome at this. We're trying to use AI to automatically summarize the notes you talk about in meetings. So as long as you have used the app in your meeting, added the items, closed them out, added some sort of summaries on top of them, we'll try to digest that information into something that you can pop in, that you can then share with your peers automatically. So we're playing with that right now. I don't have a timeline for when that will come out, but it's something that's real cool. And if it works here inside of Slack, it will definitely go across the entire product, and you'll get that in your email. You get that in Microsoft Teams. It'll go everywhere. Those are the three things we're working on currently. And now, Brennan, take over.
I'm taking over. Let's see what happens. Things are bouncing. I want to share, some of the things that you've touched on, Graham. I think I have some screenshots for it. So quickly, we've talked a little bit about, and Jonathan, I think you asked about Asana. So I have good news for you. The agenda automations, Graham mentioned autopilot. It's out in beta now. You can try it. We've ironed out most of the kinks. But as he mentioned, one of the things that we're working towards is defaulting some of these automations on. So if you can imagine your meeting starts in 1 hour, that finish button is now missing. And as your meeting goes, just a countdown timer where that finish meeting button is, 52 minutes left. And when it's over, we'll give you a little notification that says we're going to automatically show those notes and say 59 minutes. Set up that next meeting for you. We'll give you all of those in settings. We're calling those, eventually when they're all out, we'll be calling those automations. So keep an eye for that. But right now, autopilot's in beta. You can try it. Going forward, we'll be defaulting that on, but we're not going to make drastic changes to you, to your meetings without letting you know. So it will be off for all of your current meetings, and we'll prompt you to turn it on when we feel like it's perfect. In the meantime, if you want to try it out with a couple of meetings, you can turn it on with autopilot on. Second thing that's coming soonish is multiple events synced to a single workspace. So if you have say 2 meetings a week that are at different times, you could sync both of those meetings to one workspace and have them all tied together in some of those automations and some of that autopilot stuff that we've been mentioning in the future. So something I think asked about a lot that will also rapidly improve a lot of our calendar syncs as things move around. And then maybe the final thing on the workflow section, I know I'm a minute over, sorry to people who've got to bounce. Asana, Linear, theoretically in the future, more next steps being pushed out, and then when marked as complete in some of those tools, completing within our own. So something that we're just starting to kind of work on. And the way we're doing it is doing it so that we can do it for all tools. So if you're not using Asana, doesn't mean we've forgotten about you. We're purposely doing it in a way that allows us to add more in the future.
If you've used our Zapier integration right now, that's more of for a personal use. So it's like, and items that are assigned to me can be shared through Zapier to whatever tool you're using. It'll work like that. It'll be at the workspace level. So it'll be your workspace connected to your company's Asana or Linear to start.
Yeah.
And then we'll add support for other things like Jira and other tools that people are using.
Also working on some one-on-one and goal reports. So if you want to see how your team or how your company is doing as it relates to one-on-ones, are they showing up? Are they in the calendar? What's the cadence? Are we adding items to it? A little bit more of an activity, but specific to one-on-ones, we've got that coming. And same with goals. So if you've got goals set up, you're on the business plan, you got goals set up in your meetings, OKRs going, we'll give you some reports on what that looks like. As well as like little manager views on it. So you can see how you're doing just related to your own team. I won't go too far into it. I do think we've answered a lot of the questions as we've went. I don't see anything else in the QA, but if you do have any questions, feel free to ask. I know we're a little over.
We'll stick around.
You're stuck to the end. We'll stick to the end.
You bet.